Good morning. My talk today is on the law of cause and effect, how we use it and how we could possibly misuse it. And this law is the idea that our thoughts and our feelings create the experience that we have. I first learned about this in a Science of Mind class called Foundations, when I first started attending Science of Mind churches. I rapidly came to the conclusion that if that were true, then I must be to blame for everything that was wrong with my life and everything that was wrong in the world. But I have learned over time that that isn't really a good use of this law. That playing the blame game, going back into the past and blaming myself for what I'm experiencing today is not the purpose of this law. And there is an opportunity when I am confronted with things that I don't like to use this law constructively and creatively, and to use it in the moment, which is the only place that it exists. But it is easy to get into this habit of playing the blame game, even if you're not a Science of Mind student. It's a very common practice to blame ourselves for our past behavior. There's a perverse logic to it. So if our movement calls this a misuse of the law, that comes straight from Ernest Holmes. He wrote a book called The Science of Mind, which our tradition is based on. He said that there's no sin but a mistake, and there is no punishment but an inevitable circumstance. That tells me that whatever I put into the law is always going to be reflected back to me. But I'm not supposed to blame myself for that. I'm supposed to be empowered by the idea that my thought is creative and that I can have reflected back to me something that I want to have reflected back to me by choosing my thoughts consciously. My spiritual leader, Reverend Dr. Kathy Ann Lewis, refers to this as malpractice when you play the blame game. I like that. The idea of malpractice puts me in the position of the physician who is in the trade of healing. But in this tradition, it would be metaphysician, greater than the physical, above the physical, healing at the spiritual level. That's what the conscious use of the law of cause and effect is all about. So why is blaming ourselves for our experience a misuse of the law? The simple answer is that God does not blame. But I feel there's another point to consider here. The only use one can make of the law is in the present moment. It doesn't exist in the past. So if I'm going back into the past to find the reasons for what I'm experiencing now, I'm traveling directly away from where this empowering law actually exists. Nothing can be done in the past. Only in the present moment can something be done. It's not that I shouldn't look at my past. It's not that any of us shouldn't look at the past. There are useful things to be done in the past. We learn from our experience and we can teach from our experience. Those are positive uses of our past experience. And we can bring love to our past experience. In other words, if we look at our memories and they're not so great, maybe like myself, someone had a childhood that wasn't necessarily the ideal childhood. Parents maybe didn't take care of one the way one would have liked. If I want my present life to reflect something back to me that I desire, one of the ways I can do that is by bringing love to my past experience. I was doing a practitioner session recently for one of our practitioner students. And as he talked, it became clear to me that he was looking at his past behavior and just absolutely kicking himself for it. And this was not serving him. It was bringing to him experiences that he did not want to have. And I looked at him and I said, what would happen if you made a practice out of loving who you used to be? And I watched his face light up. He said, I could do that. And I said, you realize if you made a practice out of loving who you used to be, there would always be a future you loving you now. It's like, yeah, he really liked that. And I really liked that. I'd never heard that before either. That came through me in the moment. And later I posted it as my status on Facebook. And within hours I had 50 comments from people who just thought that was great and that they were going to make a practice out of that themselves. People reposted it as their status line. My psychologist friend quoted me on her website, which I found to be a great honor. I don't take credit for that. I take credit for opening myself up to a wisdom that was always here, coming through. But sometimes that habit of blame is hard to break. And there are a couple of things we can do to break habits. And one is, like I already mentioned, loving who we used to be. But sometimes maybe that's hard. Maybe we look at our past behavior and we can't even muster up that feeling of love. We're still too concerned with how bad we must be. So the other piece is forgiveness. Forgiving who we used to be for the behavior that we had. How do we do that? First, I have to know that I'm not my behavior. I'm bigger than my behavior. My behavior happens from me, but it is not me. And we also understand it's easy when we look at others that sometimes unskilled behavior erupts from traumatic experiences in their own past. And I can really, if I step back, look and see how, my life has not always been a piece of cake. And there has been trauma, and there would be times when I might erupt in a behavior I don't like simply because I haven't really completely dealt with those feelings that go with that past experience. So having that understanding about what might be the motivation for that type of behavior helps me to forgive myself. I forgive myself because I understand that there's a fear to experience the pain and the loss and the grief of some of my past experiences. And so things have gone undealt with. That's where that kind of behavior might erupt from. And I know standing here today, I want to be healed. I want to be healed of all of that. And what I'm learning is that there is a capital L love in this universe, and that it is a healing power. And so it is important for me as a metaphysician to consciously choose to bring that universal love, that capital L love, into my past experiences. That's a good use of the past, to consciously bring love to it, to heal those memories. I know that some of the people that mistreated me when I was a child, if they knew that they were connected to a universal power of love, they would have behaved differently. And so I bring them, that power in my memory. I go ahead and let them have it now. Maybe it doesn't change what happened in the past, but it changes the way I hold my past now, to realize that every person that I ever interacted with, whether they knew it or not, was connected to this power of love. That helps me get to that place where I can really forgive myself and really love who I used to be. Which brings me back to this present moment and the conscious use of the law of cause and effect to create the life that I really want to live and to help others to experience the life that they really want to live. I've been thinking a lot lately about my father-in-law because he's having a hard time. His health is failing and his mental health is failing. He, 15 years ago, he had a massive stroke, and doctors and pretty much everyone didn't really think he was going to be around for another month, let alone 15 more years. But he did recover from that stroke. He had been completely paralyzed. He got back the use of the left side of his body. He had lost speech. He got back the ability to speak. And he was able to return to a life that he was able to be engaged in and enjoy and live at home and not be tied to hospitals and doctors all the time. He was a night owl, and he used to call me late at night, have these long philosophical discussions. And one night, about 2 years after his big stroke, he called me and wanted to tell me about a dream that he had had. He said he dreamed he died and that he had gone to heaven. And he was talking to St. Peter, and this is such a classic image. And I said, Marty, you were raised Jewish. And he says, I know, but this is the dream that I had. And he said he was talking to St. Peter, and St. Peter was telling him that yes, he had lived a good life and he was going to go to heaven, but that heaven was a place where you could have whatever you wanted. And it was really important for Marty to tell St. Peter what it was that he wanted in heaven. And Marty thought about that for a little while, and he said to St. Peter, you know, what I was doing before was pretty good. St. Peter said, okay. And Marty said at that point he woke up home in his own bed. I really like that. Marty's unconscious mind was telling him that his life was heaven right now. That's the life that I want to have, the one that I believe is heaven right now. And I think through conscious use of the law of cause and effect, by choosing love, by choosing to always forgive, by choosing to love who I used to be, love who I'm going to be, and to know that who I used to be and who I'm going to be are loving me right now, puts me in that place of heaven right now, and it puts me in that place of being connected to that universal love and being able to teach and give from that place, so that I'm setting an example for you, so you can use the law of cause and effect in your own life to have the experience in life that you want to have. To me, that's the healing. That's what the metaphysician does. And anyone who wants to be consciously using this law of cause and effect can call themselves a metaphysician. When you're able to love whoever you were before this moment, it creates the space to live in heaven right now. So thank you.